Welcome everyone. This tutorial assumes that you have already set up the NETAPP Filer and join it to your domain along with a client computer that can connect to the filer through SSH and have Netapp Oncommand System Manager installed. To start, open your NETAPP client, click Storage, then click Create Aggregate. Name the aggregate. Select the RAID type. Default is RAID DP. Click Next. Select the disks. Now minimum for a RAID DP configuration is 3 disks. Then click Create. We will now see the created aggregate, but it's not usable yet since the aggregate is zeroing all the disks to be ready for use, effectively clearing everything on the disk. To add a disk to an existing aggregate, go to your NETAPP client, select Disks, choose from a spare disks listed here, click Add to Aggregate, select where you want the disk to go to, and then it should effectively zero out the disk before being used by that aggregate. As you can see the status here on the aggregate page, the RAID group is growing. To create an aggregate through the NETAPP Filer's CLI, we need to open a connection through putty. Check the aggregate status. And type in this command to create our new aggregate. You can see I've omitted the 64 because NetApp creates aggregates as a 64-bit one by default. Now we have 3 spare disks here, which is the minimum for a RAID DP. Just put in 3. This warning just tells us that we are using all of the spares to create this new aggregate, therefore we cannot swap if ever a disk fails. Now let us check the status of our new aggregate. And that covers creating aggregate through the CLI. Now let us cover how the system deals with a disk failure. For this task, we will specifically pre-fail a disk from an aggregate. We're selecting a disk from our test AGGR aggregate we created earlier. Now what will happen is this will pre-fail a disk to simulate a disk failure. Now what usually happens is when a disk fails, the filer automatically looks to the spare disks it has. But since in our case we have no more spares, we are getting this error. Now we check the status of the aggregate and we can see here that the disk we selected earlier has a status of pre-fail. Now usually what happens is that a spare disk will be selected by the filer and then replaces this pre-failed disk. And that covers how to pre-fail a disk in the NETAPP Filer. A volume acts like a partitioned hard drive, with the aggregate being the hard drive itself. You can have many volumes in one aggregate. To create one, click Volumes, click Create, and enter the details of your volume. and select the aggregate you want it to be created to. Specify the storage and the size, and it should show there. To resize the volume, click the resize button. Set the settings you want to change it to. Take snapshots if you want. Then finish. To change the size through CLI, we input this command to check the space, and input this command to change its settings. Now we check to see the change. If a volume would be a drive's partition, a Qtree would then be that drive's subdirectory. To create one, click Qtrees, click Create, put in the details, and then select which volume you want the Qtree to go. Default will be to inherit the security style of the volume it is on. But for this example, we're creating a Qtree for a Windows system. So we select NTFS. Now you can see there the Qtree populated. Now this Qtree doesn't actually take up space directly, since we set the volume to be a thin provisioned volume. Since we have no files on it yet, it doesn't take up space at all. Now let's try creating a Qtree through the CLI. We type in this command to create the Qtree. Take note, we need to specify the path when you're creating this in the CLI. And check the Qtree status. It automatically pops up there. You can see that the volume has a security style of Unix when I created it, so it took it by default. Now let us try to delete a Qtree. First, let us delete a Qtree through the Netapp Oncommand System Manager or the installed client. Let's delete the first Qtree. Accept the prompt, and there, easy. To delete a Qtree through the CLI though, it's a bit trickier since we need to specify where the Qtree is actually located, and we also have to do the advanced settings. And that covers how to delete a Qtree. Now let us cover how to delete a volume from the filer. First, select the filer, then set the status to offline, then accept the prompt. Then we can click on delete. And that's how you delete a volume from the filer.